All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started to make sure we have enough time for the presentation and any questions you all have. So welcome to USC Career Resources for International Students. My name is Addie Chung. I'm the Associate Director of International Student Career Engagement at the USC Career Center. Can everyone hear me okay? Everything is good? Yeah? Okay, great. Thank you. Good to see some returning faces from yesterday as well. So for today's session, I just wanted to start with some housekeeping items. There will be a Q&A at the end of this presentation, so please, feel free to type your questions in the chat, but I will not address them directly until the end of the presentation. I tried to have a comprehensive presentation to cover any questions you might have, so hopefully they will get answered throughout the presentation. All right, so without further ado, let us begin. Oh, and this session is being recorded. So if you do need to leave because you have a class or you missed part of it, it will be posted in the Career Center YouTube channel within the next week, and you'll be able to review it there as well. All right, so how many of you have already visited the Career Center in person? You want to type in the chat? Yes. Who here has visited the Career Center? Nobody yet? Okay, awesome. You plan to. Love to see that. Oh, yay. Great. So for those of you who haven't been yet, the Career Center is located in the Student Union building right at the center of campus. So we're across from TCC. We're next to the credit union. We're, let's see, another good way to explain it, Seeds Cafe. We're right across from Seeds Cafe. So right in that area. So you kind of go up the stairs and we have like a door in the corner that says Career Center. So that's the main entrance of the Career Center. Student Union 110 is the address. We're open Monday to Friday, 8:30 to 5. And we also have a lot of online resources and services that are available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So we do offer career advising, which you can schedule, and you can meet with us in person or virtually. And we host most of those advising sessions upstairs in the Student Union 110. But we also have another half of our office, which is located in the B1 portion of the Student Union building, the basement. So there are offices there. And so that's where our internship engagement or internship programs are housed, as well as our employer engagement team, and also interview rooms, which are used by employers. And also you can schedule you can book an interview room to use for your own purposes. Like if you have a virtual interview with an employer, you can actually request to use one of our interview rooms for that. We also have the Trojan presentation room, or STUB3, which is our biggest kind of presentation room. It has a capacity of about 72. So you'll see a lot of workshops hosted in that room, hosted by the Career Center or by employers or even other departments. And then we also have another room called the Cardinal Gold Room, which is in B6, and we'll sometimes have smaller workshops or employer Trojan talks in that room. So more about our services at the Career Center. So as I mentioned, we do career advising. So in a career advising appointment, we will cover anything from, how to search for a job and an internship, strategies, where to look. You can also learn about, you can do drop-in advising for resume and cover letter review. We do mock interviews, just general career planning questions, career exploration, kind of what careers align with your major. So we have resources for pretty much every step of your career development, from just understanding what your skills are and getting to know what you're interested in, all the way to accepting a job offer or negotiating a salary with an employer. We also have a lot of events and workshops around those various career topics, focused on general population as well as specific student populations, including international students like this one. We do support with networking. So we have like special networking events and workshop series on that topic. And we can also give advice on that during advising sessions. And we have, as I mentioned, a ton actually of online resources for every step of your career development. It can be a little bit overwhelming, if I'm honest, but you could spend just a day exploring our website and looking at all of our different resources. So, definitely take a little bit of time to see what we have available, because there's really something for everything on our website and also in Handshake. So more about career advising. As I mentioned, we do have drop-in advising, which is basically, that just means you just come into the Career Center. You don't have to make an appointment. And you can do that any Monday to Friday, 1 to 3:30 p.m. And that will be on the first floor, where that door is that I showed you. So it's in person. You just need to bring your student ID and check in at the front desk. And those are shorter sessions, so it's just 10 to 15 minutes. So we reserve drop-in advising for things like a quick resume or cover letter review, or even just like a quick career-related question. If you have a more in-depth career question around some of the topics I just mentioned, that's when you might want to schedule a 30-minute career advising appointment, which you can do in Handshake. So there are appointments available Monday to Friday, 8:30 to 5, virtual or in person with various advisors. So you can just, when you're in Handshake, you would just click on the Career Center tab on the left, and then you'll see appointments as an option to click into. And from there, you'll be able to see the different appointment categories. USC Career Center is one of them. You'll also see potentially your school career advising. So if you're in Viterbi, you'll see like Viterbi Career Connections. If you're in Marshall, you'll see Marshall. And then some of you might also see USC China Career Services, which is an office that provides support for Chinese students who are looking to return home or find opportunities in China over the summer. And so all of those will be options that you see, and we recommend that you make use of any and all of those resources that are helpful to you. I like to explain it as the USC Career Center, we are the career foundation. So we can support with, resume, cover letter, just kind of like a broad understanding of everything. But when it comes to more in-depth support, for example, you're wanting advice on how to pick courses or how to connect with employers in your industry, that would be something that is better directed to your school career center, because they are the experts in your industry, whereas we are more career generalists. Yeah, so that is how you do that. And as I mentioned, you can make an appointment on different topics as well. So within the USC Career Center appointment category, you'll see options like career exploration, mock interviews, internship and job search strategies, and also international student advising only. If you're an international student, you can select that option, or you can select the topic. It doesn't matter. If you want to meet with me, you'll be able to choose any of those. But you can also meet with any of my colleagues, because we are all qualified to support all of you. All right, so more about Handshake. So how many of you here have used the Handshake platform on your computer? Like they've gone to the Handshake website. Yeah, it is great, Charlie. We love Handshake. How many of you have used the Handshake app on your phone? Not as many, maybe. Oh, okay, cool. Good to see that. Yes. The Handshake app is also really cool. This is the QR code for the app. It's very cool because it has kind of like, it's kind of got a news feed, sort of like social media, but it's all news about career. And you can do all the same things that you would normally do in on the web version. You can do all those in the app as well. So it's pretty convenient to be able to just like, make an appointment just like when you're on the bus, or you don't have to be like in front of your computer to do that. But in Handshake, so you can do everything from searching for jobs and internships. You can sign up for OCR, or on-campus recruiting, which basically means that the employer is coming to the Career Center to interview candidates for their open positions. So the way OCR usually works is the employer will have an open position, and they'll have, you apply for that open position, and then the candidates that they want to invite to interview, they just invite them to attend the on-campus recruiting at the Career Center. So you'll, rather than having to do like a virtual interview or like travel to that employer's office somewhere, you get to just be here at USC, at the Career Center on campus, and interview with that employer. So it's a really cool opportunity. And then you can also, as I mentioned, you can make career advising appointments. You can RSVP for career events and workshops. And you can access all our online resources all on Handshake. And where you find the resources would also be under Career Center. But rather than clicking on appointments, I think if the previous slide had that, rather than clicking on appointments, you click on resources. You see that button there. And then just, yeah, make sure I'm sure most of you have used Handshake, but if you haven't, you just access it using your USC single sign-on. So, all right. So this is another really important resource for international students that I want you all to be aware of. The international student pages of our website. So the Career Center website is careers.usc.edu. And if you click on the left tab that says who we serve, and then go to affinities, and then click on international students, that will take you to the page that we curate specifically for international students. So all of the resources and information on this page is just for you, including upcoming events that are tailored to international students, like how to secure an internship for international students. That was yesterday. Today's workshop is there. You'll also see an upcoming workshop with an immigration law firm for postdoctoral students on self-sponsored green card options. There's also a workshop called Tapping into the Trojan Network that's being led by Stacy Geck, who is a faculty member at Marshall and an expert in communication. She's a really fantastic presenter. So if you have the opportunity to attend that session, I highly recommend it. That one is going to be focused on communicating with employers, and we have specifically scheduled it in advance of the USC Career Center International Student Virtual Career Fair, so that you can be better prepared to chat with employers during that event. So the following week is the International Student Virtual Career Fair, another event just for you. So please register for that event. Check out the employers who are attending. There are more registering every week. So the number continues to grow, especially for virtual events. Employers don't always register very far in advance, unfortunately. So please just keep an eye on that and see who will be attending, and plan in advance kind of who you want to meet with, what your elevator pitch is going to be, what resume you want to upload into VFairs, which is our virtual events platform. And just be prepared to be open-minded and be surprised by an employer that you haven't heard of before, because there are a lot of employers that are eager to talk to our international students. So be open to chatting with somebody new and learning something new. And for all of these workshops, they are all virtual. Any workshop that is hosted by me is going to be recorded. So I will try to upload all of those into our Career Center YouTube channel and then also into the international student pages of our website. Stacy Geck's workshop is not recorded because it is very interactive. So basically you really just have to be present for that workshop in order to get the benefit of it. Okay. So some common questions. I want to dig into some of these because these are the questions I get from my international students that I work with a lot. And also maybe some of you are thinking about these questions. So I'm going to try to address those up front. So we're going to talk a little bit about, work authorization, CPT and OPT, support services for recent international graduates looking for OPT, OPT versus STEM OPT, and the H-1B process. So work authorization. So if you're looking to work off campus, you have to keep in mind that if you are an F1 student, you have to have been in F1 status for a minimum of 1 academic year or like 2 full academic semesters before you're able to work off campus. So summer unfortunately doesn't count. So if you started in the spring, you would have to wait until the following spring you wouldn't be able to start working until the following spring, basically. But if you start in the fall, you'd be eligible to work off campus in the summer. There are some exceptions to this rule. So definitely double check the OIS website because they do have a short list of programs that don't have to meet this requirement. And that's usually because those programs have an internship as part of its curricular requirement. So if you're in a program where an internship or an externship is required, you may not have to wait the full year. So just double check that with OIS. For on-campus work, international students are not eligible for work study because work study is a form of federal financial aid. So when you're searching for on-campus jobs, make sure you're focusing on non-work study jobs only. And you can work on campus in your first academic year in F1 status. So most international students are searching for on-campus jobs in their first year, and then you can also look for full-time jobs during that time, but you can't start working until the summer after your first year. Also, during the academic year, you can only work part-time, whether it is whether it is work study or whether it is an on-campus job or an off-campus job. You can only work 20 hours per week. However, you can that only applies to one or the other. So basically, like if you were to get an on-campus job, maybe like you're in your second year and you get a 20-hour-a-week on-campus job, you could also get a 20-hour-a-week off-campus job in your second year, and that would still be okay. But you just need to be mindful of your time and recognize whether or not you can actually balance both of those things with your course load. So other questions. So we often get a question about whether you have access to Handshake right at the beginning of the semester. All of you have that now, but usually you don't. If you didn't have Handshake access yet, you wouldn't get it until you registered for classes. Also, I think at this point, most of you will be eligible to have a social security number. Basically, you wouldn't be able to request one until after 10 days after you arrived in the US. But once you get a job offer, you can apply for a social security number with the Social Security Administration. And the Office of International Services, or OIS, they have a whole page on that here. Oops, sorry. They have I was trying to copy it and it just sent me to the next page, but it's just ois.usc.edu. And then it's under their Living in LA section, money, and then SSN. So they have a whole page where they explain the process of applying for a social security number. So more about CPT and OPT. So how many of you have heard of CPT and OPT? That's a question for the audience. Yes, thanks, Charles. Thank you. Yay. Thanks, Hao Chung. Okay, cool. Yeah, so CPT is generally a type of, so CPT stands for curricular practical training. It's a work authorization that most students will do, well, you can only do during your academic program. So that's either during the academic year, so part-time, or during the summer, which you can actually do full-time because you do not have a full academic course load in the summer. So the process for applying to CPT is that you actually have to get the internship offer first, and then you use that offer letter to apply for CPT. OIS, again, they have a very comprehensive page about, well, multiple pages really about CPT as well as OPT. So definitely, I always recommend that you familiarize yourself with the whole process for CPT and OPT before you are trying to do those, because you don't want to be trying to scramble to understand it at the last minute. It's just helpful to equip yourself with that knowledge so that you know what to expect and you can plan ahead for that. So OIS on their website under US employment, F1 student employment, you'll see the different pages on CPT and OPT. There's also a page on AT for J1 students. So if you're a J1 student and you're looking for information about AT, you can find that there as well. And OIS has the best way, honestly, to ask questions about CPT and OPT if you're trying to contact someone from OIS is to go to their drop-in advising sessions, because they get a lot of emails every day and it's sometimes hard for them to respond to everybody. So I always recommend clicking on you can see there's a tab on their page that says drop-in advising. This is the drop-in advising schedule here. They offer that every day for a couple hours every day. And if you go to that page, you'll see actually their drop-in advising Zoom link, and you can just click into that directly and then, wait in the virtual queue to have your question answered. So on the international student pages of our website, I actually have a visual kind of table that compares CPT and OPT, just as another way to present that information to you, because I understand that sometimes it can be hard. It is a lot of information. It can be hard to process everything if you're just reading it on a website. So I always like to try to find it in different formats just to make it easier to digest. Some people prefer one way, some people prefer another way. So if you click on this button on the international student page of our website that says part-time jobs and internships, you'll see that there's like a PDF that's highlighted on the right side of the page. You can click on that, and this is what it looks like. It's basically just a comparison of CPT and OPT and questions about it. As I mentioned, CPT is off campus. It's paid or unpaid. It's during the academic year. And OPT is usually done after you complete your academic program. So you would be able to start OPT as soon as you get your work authorization, which you actually apply for in advance. So unlike CPT, where you actually have to get the offer letter first, for OPT, you actually apply first, and then once you get that work authorization, you would just update OIS when you have a job offer. And so that would be added to your file. The biggest difference between CPT and OPT that is important to remember, I think, is that CPT is handled completely by USC. CPT so the Office of International Services, they're the ones who will process your final CPT application once it has been approved by your academic advisor. So that process doesn't take that long. It's only about a week once it's in the hands of OIS. But OPT, on the other hand, because that's after you graduated, that's to work, that's more of like a full-time job kind of situation. That's actually processed by the Department of Labor, USCIS. And so that process takes a bit longer. And we've seen in some cases, it can take as long as 5 months for them to process an OPT application. So it's really important that you apply for OPT as early as you're eligible to, which is actually up to 30 days, or sorry, 90 days prior to the end date of your program. So some students, I've heard students say, oh, like, I don't want to apply too early because then I will use up my OPT time. But honestly, what we've been seeing recently is that it takes a bit longer. So really just apply at that 90-day mark so that hopefully you'll get your EAD card within a short time after you graduate so that you can begin working as soon as possible. So for OPT, you can actually, you can work 40 hours because it's after you graduated. There is actually a pre-completion OPT option, but most students choose not to do that because if you, it actually reduces the amount of time you have for post-completion OPT. So students usually like to save their OPT for just the end because you already have CPT. So back to this. So CPT, important deadlines. CPT is not something you can just do at any time in the academic year. So CPT, the deadline to apply for CPT is the last add drop date of every semester. The summer also has an add drop date, so keep that in mind. You can find the add drop dates on the in the course catalog, I believe, or yeah, it should be the course catalog. So it'll list, or if you look up like USC registration calendar 2024, you'll probably find like the add drop, like the registration deadline for all of that, the semesters. So just keep that in mind that you know, you want to plan ahead for that so that you have all the information you need, all of the approvals that you need to apply for CPT by that date. So in addition to getting the offer letter from the employer to apply for CPT, you also have to register for an internship course in order to meet the curricular requirement of CPT. The reason for that is curricular basically means that it has to be related to the curriculum of your academic program at USC. So if you're not part of a program that requires an internship as part of its curriculum, you have to take an internship course in order to get the academic credit, the curricular piece of CPT. I know that it's annoying. It's you have to like pay the tuition for this internship course, but it is a requirement, not from USC, but from the US government. So just remember that we cannot change that policy, and that's just how it is. And so you have to register for the internship course, and then so you have to get approval from your academic advisor to do that. So then once you have both of those pieces, you have the internship course, you have the offer letter, then you can apply for CPT following the process on the OIS website. They have the application linked there. And so then also the timing for CPT is important. You can't just apply once and then have CPT for a full year. You have to actually reapply every semester. So that's important to remember. And also something to keep in mind is that you don't want to exceed 11 months. Basically, you don't want to reach 12 months of full-time CPT because then you will become ineligible for OPT. But in most cases, students will not accrue 12 months of full-time CPT because you can only do full-time CPT in the summer, and that's only just a couple months. So the only way you would really ever accrue 12 months of full-time CPT would be if you literally did, let's see, yeah, like three months of CPT after every semester if you're an undergraduate student, which you don't really do anyway because after your senior year you'll be doing OPT. So you don't really have to worry about that, but it's just something to know if you feel like, oh wow, I've been doing so much CPT. I'm just like, make sure that doesn't happen. if you want to change employers on CPT, you do have to fill out a new CPT application. Whereas if you're on OPT, you actually can change employers. And that's because of the process. If you remember OPT, you actually apply for OPT first, and then you update OIS with your employment information, whereas CPT is employment offer based. So that's why that policy is different. And for OPT, you do not get college credit because it's after your degree. The other thing to remember about OPT is that you only get it once per degree level. So if you say, oh, like I want to do a progressive degree program, so I'm going to go straight from my undergraduate to my master's, and then I'll have 2 years of OPT because they added up. But that's not true, because once you start your master's, it resets and you only have the 1 year of OPT. So you don't get to like accrue OPT if you continue doing degrees, unfortunately. So the other thing about OPT is there is something called STEM OPT. How many of you have heard of STEM OPT? Yeah. Yeah, so if you are in a STEM major, which I think in most cases you're going to know because your major is going to tell you that it's a STEM major, you have the option of extending your 1 year of OPT an additional 24 months after that first 12 months. So what that means is if you are in your first year of OPT and that employer wants to continue working with you, if they want to hire you and keep you on for another 2 years, they can petition to extend your OPT. So you can't just, it's not that you automatically get the 3 years right up front, it's that it's an extension of your first year, if that makes sense. So every F1 student gets 1 year of OPT, and then STEM students can extend that if they're already in their first year. And for employers to be able to petition to extend your OPT, they have to have registered for something called E-Verify, which is a US government system that that just allows them to verify that you're eligible for STEM OPT. So that's something that's going to come up later. So that's why I'm mentioning the E-Verify now. All right. So CPT, OPT, it's a lot. Those are all, F1 student-based work authorizations. The J1 work authorization AT has, like a pre-completion and a post-completion version, kind of like CPT and OPT as well. The requirements for that can vary. So also look at the OIS website for that information. But in a lot of cases, I think, and for many of you, the end goal is going to be getting visa sponsorship from an employer or getting H-1B. But I want to remind you, and I'm sure you're also aware of this, but getting an H-1B is not easy because the H-1B employer-sponsored visa is a lottery, which just means that even if you find an employer who's willing to sponsor you, they still have to enter your information. Basically, they have to petition for you to be in the lottery to get the H-1B. And there's only 65,000 selected every year. Maybe 85,000 if you're a master's student. There's an additional 20,000 for master's students, but ultimately that's just not a lot. So the lottery rate is usually under 20%. It's usually pretty low. So, so it's just important I always remind my students that try not to put all of your eggs in one basket, because if you're so focused on just H-1B, you're going to be setting yourself up for a lot of stress and potentially disappointment, and a lot of it's out of your control. So I always recommend that you try to think about all of the different pathways that you can take to achieving your career goal, whether that is, it may be, getting H-1B may be one pathway, but maybe another pathway is, finding a company that has an office in your home country as well as the US, or a third country as well as the US, and working in that other country first, and then trying again for H-1B, or maybe your company will eventually apply for a different type of visa for you to transfer to the US. There's a lot of different types of visas out there. I'm not an immigration lawyer, but I do work with one who hosts a lot of workshops for all of you, for our international students, including some workshops that are on our website, past recordings that you can review. There are other paths to working in the US besides H-1B, so definitely check those out. And maybe consider other countries as well, like Canada. I know Canada is actually really, eager to hire international talent from the US. They have some really great immigration pathways for international candidates, especially if you have an advanced degree, special skills, especially STEM. So like that's something to think about. And those are the types of, I also have workshops in partnership with like the Canadian consulate and other programs that talk about backup options besides H-1B. So I'm also going to talk a little bit more about some of the resources we have at the Career Center that can help you search for employers who are willing to sponsor, and kind of focus your energy on those employers who are interested in hiring international talent. So we'll talk about that in a second. I know that I've been talking for a while, so I do want to just give a quick pause and see if there are any questions that I can answer. So I see for work authorization, the one academic year requirement applies to every degree level, so it resets. So if you're in F1 status for high school, that's one academic year. It resets once you start F1 in college. So you don't get to count, unfortunately, high school F1 status as the one academic year. All sorts. If you are an F1 student, any type of work that you do requires work authorization. You just, no matter what. So it's all the types. Any type of research. Yeah. So if you complete full-time academic term fall and spring, then yes, you are eligible to have a summer internship. So do grad students, if you're an RA, that means you're working a research assistantship. If you're working on campus, that is separate from CPT. So on-campus jobs do not require CPT, but off-campus jobs do require, off-campus internships do require CPT. And you can only work full-time on CPT if it's in the summer when you're not doing a full course load, or if it's the last semester of your program and you have applied for a reduced course load with OAS. You can't just assume you can work 40 hours. You should always make sure you're following the process for the reduced course load application with OAS if it's your final semester. So if you're in a graduate program that's only 1 year long, yeah, I would double check the OIS website about, like, look at the list of programs that are the exception to the 1 year requirement. Your program may be on there, but if it's not, then I would check with OIS about that. I would say if it's not on the list, then you probably can't do it, but that seems strange to me. So you may be in a program that has like a practicum or an internship or externship requirement where you can just do that and you don't need to wait the 1 year. So double check with OAS. I would say if you're looking for a summer internship, you can also look for part-time jobs, but the requirements might be a little bit different. So generally, I would recommend focusing on internships just because those programs tend to be a little bit more, supportive of students working during the summer. The expectations will be a little bit different. They'll provide more training and more like project-based learning. So like an internship might be a little bit better of an experience if it's your first work experience in the summer, but you could also apply for a part-time job, but it has to be something that I failed to mention earlier. Whether you're doing CPT or OPT, it has to be tied to your major. You can't just do any type of work. So like, let's say you're a Viterbi computer science student, you cannot do like CPT or OPT as like an administrative assistant if it doesn't have anything that's related to your major. So that's another key requirement of CPT and OPT. Curricular practical training or optional practical training, they both have the term practical training in them, which means that it's getting hands-on training in your field of study. So that is the really important piece that you have to abide by, or it will not get approved by OAS or by the US government when you apply. If it's in the summer, you do still need to take the course for CPT because that's just the requirement. There are summer internship courses offered as well. There are summer courses offered. So that would just be the only course that you take in the summer. And it has to happen concurrently. So whatever term you're doing CPT in, you have to be taking that internship course at the same time. So for OPT, you apply for OPT first, and an OAS has on their website, it explains that process step by step, and the application is also on their website. So you do apply for OPT first, and then concurrently you may also be searching for jobs. Once you get a job offer, that is when you would provide that information to OAS and they will attach that job offer to your OPT file. But you cannot begin working in that job until you receive your approval, it's called the EAD. So once you get the EAD card, you're able to start working on OPT. So yeah, so unfortunately for OPT, what happens is, and this is why some students try to like play with the timing of when they apply, but I advise against that and always just apply as early as possible because it can take a while, as I said. But basically, once you do receive your EAD card, which is your permission to work, your authorization to work, that you start accruing unemployment if you do not have a job. And so there's only so much, I believe that I need to double check. This is something that's on the OIS website. I believe it's only 90 days of unemployment that you're allowed to accrue in 1 year. And so if you do not find a job, if you don't start working within those 90 days, then you have to return home. Because you're out of status by then. The other thing to remember is that, I don't recommend trying to use up all of those 90 days right at the beginning, because if you lose your OPT job before the end of the year, then you'll also be out of, you start accruing unemployment again. So you don't want to like plan to use up all of your unemployment at the beginning and not give yourself a cushion just in case you don't have that job by the end of the year. So as a Canadian F1 student or an F1 student from any country, you are legally authorized to work in the US because you are eligible for CPT and OPT. So if you do have that question on an application, you can answer yes to that. Yeah. So research assistantships at other universities do require work authorization because those are not considered on-campus jobs at USC. It's only considered on campus if it's on this campus. And yes, the on-campus job fair has passed for the fall, but there will be another one at the end of this semester for the spring, so that you can search for on-campus opportunities that are starting in the spring. CPT is required for a virtual internship, and it doesn't matter if it's paid or not, paid or unpaid. So as I mentioned, the summer doesn't count for the 1 year F1 status. So you have to have done two, like, fall or spring, 2 of those in a row to be able to be eligible for off-campus work. If you have an unpaid internship, yeah, you can, I don't know that you can apply for a social security number with an unpaid internship. I'll have to double check about that. OIS's website may have something about that, because my impression is that the social security number is specifically for like tax purposes. So if they're not paying you, they don't really need to worry about that. So yeah, I would double check. I don't know. So the question is, do you need work authorization in the future? You should say yes, whether or not you have CPT or OPT, because the question is, will you require it in the future? So if once your CPT is over, you'll still require it. Once your OPT is over, you will still require it if you want to continue working in the US. So the answer to that is always yes. Okay, great. I answered a bunch of questions. Now let's get back to the presentation. So resources. So these are all on the USC Career Center website under the International Student page again. So if you scroll down to online resources, this is what you will see. So one that I wanted to share with you first is the US Department of Labor disclosure files. So this is basically a little known secret that actually the Department of Labor publishes every quarter all of the visa petitions for like the past quarter. So that means, and that also includes not just visas, like green cards, permanent residence, any type of work authorization. They disclose all the data on all of those. So you can actually find that. I've put the link here because it's really hard to find that by Googling. So you can access it on the website. And you basically would just go scroll down to LCA programs if you're interested in looking at the H-1B data, and then click on the quarter that you want to view. I usually recommend, let's see, I guess it would be like quarter 2 or 3. That would have like the most H-1B, because that's in alignment with the like when the peak petition time is. And you click into that, it's basically a raw like Excel file, and you'll see maybe like several 100,000 entries. But the cool thing about that is it gives you all of the data about like what the name of the company is, what is the name of the position, what is the salary, whether it's like a new H-1B or returning H-1B. Also, it gives you the contact information of the like person of contact at that company. It gives you their lawyer's name and contact information. It's a ton of data. So if you're like a data nerd and you're really into just like looking at that raw information, totally can do that. And you can also search, for information about your favorite company and see like how many petitions they've made. So I'm sharing this also because the next few resources I'm going to share with you, they all use this data as their data source, but they just presented it in a much more interesting and user-friendly way. So for example, InterStride. So InterStride is a platform that was created for international students by a former international student who saw that it was really difficult to find information about the job search, about, finding H-1B employers, just to navigate the job search process in the US in general. And he decided to create this resource for international students. There's a lot of things that I love about this platform. They have some really great webinars that you can access live, like you can register and watch live, or you can access them on demand. And those you can find under the Learn tab. So I definitely recommend checking out at least Job Search Strategy for International Students, because that one's always hosted by the CEO, and he does a really good job with that presentation. But they also have workshops on things like, immigrating to Canada, and success stories from international alumni, or how to change career paths, or a lot of different things. So definitely check out that. It's a really great database. And then also InterStride has an H-1B job board under their jobs tab, under the jobs tab here. So once you click into jobs, you'll see this, what's showing on the right actually, under search jobs. So if you click on search jobs, it'll show you some featured jobs that have been pulled from Handshake. It'll also show you top frequent job searches. And then you can actually filter that job board by like job function, by top 500 H-1B or top 1,000 H-1B. And it'll basically show you jobs that have been pulled from those top 500 sponsoring employers. One thing I just want to remind you of is, if that job, even if the job is posted by an employer who has a history of sponsoring, that doesn't necessarily mean that that specific job is eligible for sponsorship. So you still need to read the job description and make sure that it doesn't say US citizens only, or not eligible for sponsorship, or something like that. But it is helpful to be able to just like focus on those jobs that are posted by those companies, because they are more likely to be eligible for sponsorship. Another tool I really like is their US Visa Insights tab. So in this, you can actually search for the top sponsoring employers in your industry, or search by, job classification as well, job function. So like if you type in, like tech, or I don't know if tech is one of the options. I don't remember what all the industry options are, but like if you type in your industry, it'll just show you all of the top sponsoring employers in the industry. In this example that you're seeing here, it's not even filtered, but you can see that Amazon is the top sponsor for all of the employers, because they have made 17,537 petitions. I think this was in 2022. It also shows their average salary, which is helpful. And then if you click into view, it will actually show you the details on all of the petitions they have made and what the job titles were, which is helpful because that can give you a sense of like how likely it is that you'll get sponsored for your specific job title that you're looking for, or for your job function. Because, companies like Amazon, you might see that they sponsor a lot for tech roles, but they may not have as many roles that they've sponsored that are non-tech. So that's something to keep in mind, just to get a sense of like which types of jobs they tend to sponsor the most. The next resource I want to share is F1 Hire. So F1 Hire is a Google Chrome and Microsoft Edge extension that you can download. And then once you've downloaded it, you create an account using your USC email, and you get that free premium access with your USC email. And then what you can do is you can see here, there's I don't know if you actually see my mouse. Let me try. Look here. So you can create a job search strategy, call it whatever you want, but if you input your major, it'll actually recommend some job titles, top 50 job titles based on your major. And you can, add in custom keywords, locations, job level. Once you've created that strategy and saved it at the bottom, it will automatically apply that job search strategy to the job board that you are in. So as you can see here, F1 Hire works in LinkedIn, Glassdoor, Indeed, Google Jobs, and Handshake. So when you're in any of those 5 job boards, it will actually automatically pop up on the right-hand side of your screen, and it'll automatically have this like job screener thing pop up at the top as well. And so you can basically apply the same job search strategy across all of the job boards, or you can create multiple job search strategies. So this is, like you can toggle between them and apply different job search strategies automatically to those job boards, which is really efficient and helpful, I think. In addition to that, I think the key point here for international students is that F1 Hire provides details on the left side in the like list of jobs. It provides like a summary, which when you click this arrow, it'll show like more details. But it basically will tell you if that employer has sponsored H1B, whether they participate in E-Verify. Who here remembers what E-Verify is for? Do you remember? I mentioned it earlier in the presentation. Do you remember what E-Verify is for? Yes, for extending STEM OPT. Great, you get an E+. So if you are, remember, if you want to do STEM OPT, your employer has to apply for the extension, and they have to be registered for E-Verify. So here, when it says participates in E-Verify, that means that the employer is already registered for E-Verify, which means that they've already hired a student for STEM OPT in the past, which will make it a lot easier for them to go through that process again with you if you want to do that. It also tells you whether they sponsored last year, how many petitions they made in the most recent year, whether they're friendly for non-STEM majors. So if you don't, if you have just the 1-year OPT, this will tell you if they're willing to consider you for that 1-year OPT. And you can also click into any of these to see, like here you see their H1B history, their E-Verify history to get more details on them. So it's really, really comprehensive. There's also a cool feature where if you upload your resume into your job search profile, it will give you a profile match score for the position that you're looking at. So it'll show up usually down here under, you don't see it here, but it'll give you like a percentage number based on the resume that you've uploaded. And there's a lot more functions to F1 Hire. Like in the dashboard, you can actually track all of your applications. You can like edit your resume. There's like a ton. So definitely check it out. It's super handy. I highly recommend it. And then the last resource I wanted to share is Going Global. So Going Global is a really great tool for students who are looking to just make a transition to a new city or a new country. It does also have an H1B OPT job board, but I don't think it's significantly different or better than Interstride's H1B job board. But what I really love about Going Global is its career guides. So it has country, global city, and USC city career guides that are updated and maintained by experts who are living in those regions. And basically in these guides, you can find information about just how to kind of enter that job market. So, what should a resume look like in that city or country? What are employers looking for in candidates? How do you network? What is the work culture like? Is it very, serious and regimented, or is it more casual? And it'll give you also like some top websites to search for jobs in that city or country, and just give you a better sense of what to expect and sort of how to kind of adapt to that work culture. They do have also, like I mentioned, job search, internship search, H1B, OPT, and you can also search their employer directory. But I think career guides are my favorite part of it. And you can also take this fun quiz called the culture wizard quiz right here. This is a quiz that where you kind of answer questions about your, you know, professional or your work life preferences, and it will give you scores for different categories, and and you'll be able to compare your results to different countries around the world to get a sense of kind of how your preferred work style stacks up in other parts of the world, which is kind of fun. So I learned from the Culture Wizard that my ideal work environment is actually the UK based on my work preferences. So that's kind of strange because I've never worked there before. So, but yeah, so that's a fun tool, a helpful tool as well. It's definitely great if you're looking at like a third country, or if you're even like wanting to move to another part of the US. Sometimes, you know, even like different states, cities in the US have totally different work cultures and personalities. So it's helpful to know that. And that's the end of the presentation. For more information, again, we're in the Student Union building. You can contact us using this, this contact form. The link is here, and there's also a QR code that you can scan for the form. And then you can come in for drop-in advising or make an appointment with us. And please come, you know, continue to come to our workshops and events, come to the Fall Career Fair, come to the International Student Virtual Career Fair, check out the website, do all the things. That's that for the presentation.